The Trump administration has implemented a new rule in regard to food stamps, which is likely to push 700,000 people off of the program. These are low-income individuals. Actually, these are individuals who have no money, aren't making any money. And as a result, the Trump administration is saying, well, we're gonna kick them off. So let me give you the details. Now this was finally, the final approval came from the Department of Agriculture. The rule, which was proposed by the Department of Agriculture back in February, would make states enforce work requirements for able-bodied adults without children that governors have routinely been able to waive, especially for areas in economic distress. So anytime you hear Republicans argue that they really want to protect states' rights, understand that they actually don't care about states' rights at all when it isn't convenient for them. So here is their justification for this. They're saying the economy has improved under the Trump administration and assistance to unemployed, able-bodied adults was no longer necessary in a strong job market. Now, we just talked about jobs in America yesterday, and a new report indicates that nearly half of Americans are actually working in low-wage jobs, half of Americans, and they're earning the median income of $18,000 a year.
So, look, I actually think one part of this is debatable. Maybe there's a little bit of the old conservative jank, but I believe in incentives and disincentives, and I've talked about this before in my personal experience. I remember when I was on unemployment insurance. I think that I stretched it out a little bit longer because I had that insurance. I might have been more motivated to get a job a little bit quicker if it was gonna run out quicker.
No, but that's a good thing. You wanna know why? Because rather than just immediately taking the first job that might not be the right job for you, that might not put you on the career path that's right for you, you're able to choose a job that fits your needs, right? Maybe pay-wise, maybe trajectory-wise. Forcing people to take jobs that aren't actually going to help them out in their future doesn't make much sense. And you pay into that system, right?
So I hear you 100%, and I paid plenty of taxes, although back then I was really broke, so I didn't pay that much taxes. That is certainly true what Ana is saying about a lot of people. And so that's, I'm gonna get to my second point about context in a second. But it's also true that for some people, you do take a little longer, okay? So I don't wanna discount either one of those things. That definitely happens. So, and on food stamps, some percentage of people stay on a little longer and not get a job. It's certainly possible, okay? But now let's look at the other 2 points that I think are much more important. So first of all, context matters. And so when the Republicans do this, they smear all poor people as lazy, right? Now, it's easy for Donald Trump Jr. to get a ton of handouts from his dad and get all this money handed to him and then pretend like he earned it. Your bootstraps. He didn't earn anything, neither did Donald Trump Sr. He got handed $413 million by his parents. So this constant attitude of the rich deserve it and the poor are bums who don't want to work is deeply troubling. So even if I'm right about some percentage of people that maybe stretch it out a little bit longer, I think every expert says that is a much smaller percentage. The much larger percentage are people who really, really need it. And in this case, note the irony of, they say, well, you gotta go get a job if you want food stamps. Well, the reason they need food stamps is because they either don't have a job in the first place or they've tried really hard to find one and they found one that doesn't pay them enough and they still need food stamps. Do you know that a lot of Walmart workers are on food stamps? Because they get paid $7.25 all throughout the country, and that's $15,000 a year, and you literally can't feed your family on that. So even if you agreed with the Republicans and you have this gut sense of like, hey, people should work, right? Understand that you're being cruel and insensitive to the majority of people getting food stamps.
And even if there is a small amount of waste, right? Like this program is not that expensive. And secondly, it's kind of like the college for all thing that Pete Buttigieg was talking about. So yeah, for a fraction of the population, that is not gonna be necessary. And yeah, you'd be technically paying for those millionaires' kids to be going to whatever state school, which they wouldn't be doing anyway. But for a great majority of the recipients, if everyone was to have college for all, it would be beneficial. Every government program has waste, but you have to talk about what you value. And obviously the Trump administration doesn't value keeping people alive.
Yeah, but you know what they do value? And it's not just the Trump administration, it's pretty much every administration. They value subsidies for oil companies to the tune of $20 billion a year. I would argue that's waste, and not just oil companies, fossil fuel companies.
So that leads to the second indisputable point. Again, I don't know what, and I don't know and I don't care what political persuasion you are. If you're honest at all, so Trump did a tax cut for that the great majority of which went to the rich. 83% of it went to the top 1% eventually, okay? So that's unbelievable. On average, the top 1% got over $60,000 in tax cuts every single year, okay? So that was $1.5 trillion at a minimum. We now know the latest numbers, estimates are that it's $1.9 trillion. So that is $200 billion every single year, the great overwhelming majority of it going to the richest people in the country. So we have $200 billion a year for the richest people in the country, but we don't have $4 billion for the poorest people in the country. And then on top of that, Anna's point, we have another $20 billion a year for oil subsidies, who are among
fossil fuel subsidies.
Fossil fuel companies, who are among the most profitable companies in the world, in the history of the world. What the hell do they need subsidies from? They take money from us and give it to ExxonMobil. But when somebody says, I can't feed my kids, they're like, nope, this is the one time we're gonna find fiscal discipline. So no matter what you think of this particular program, when they say they're doing it because of fiscal discipline, that is 100% a lie. They don't care about fiscal discipline at all when it comes to tax cuts for the rich, and when it comes to giveaways to the most profitable companies in the world. And why do they do that? Obviously, they take campaign contributions from those guys. So they get bribed to give away your money to them, and then meanwhile, are vicious and cruel to the people who need it most in this country.
By the way, there are two other rules that the Agriculture Department is looking at, and if they do finalize those rules, 4 million people would lose food stamps. With this first rule, about 700,000 people will be kicked off the program.
See, this is why I get frustrated with Democrats. Why isn't there a Democrat on the floor of the House or the Senate saying, you're gonna take away $4.2 billion from food stamps? Great. Let's end $20 billion for the fossil fuel industry. Let's do it right now. Let's do it as a package together. I hate taking the $4.2 billion away, but I'll do it if you take away the $20 billion in fossil fuel subsidies. Now, they know that the Republicans aren't gonna do that because that's all their top contributors. So, but at least make that rhetorical point and have the press say, hey, wait a minute, that is kind of curious. You say you don't have any money for food, and then you turn around and say you have all the money in the world for the top corporations in the world. But here, the total sound of silence from the Democratic Party. Nothing to fight back on this. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.